So I think last week we got through the first three of the 13 in the Bryce of Rabbi Yishmael. So why don't we pick it up with the fourth Midah? And he says the Midah Haravis Michla Uprat K'mar Amar Adam Ki Yakriv Mikem Korban Lashem Midah Behema. So, and I think we've got the pasuk here. So the pasuk says right at the beginning of Vayikra, Adam ki yakriv mikem korban la'Hashem. When you bring a korban, mina behema, you bring it from a behema, and then it says mina bakar mina tzon. So back up to the Buddha. So it says ki yakriv mikem korban la'Hashem mina behema klal. Mina behema is right. That's a general term, and lechaya shechaya bechlal behema. A chaya would be considered to be one type of behema. Excuse me. So if I just look at the first part of that pasuk, it would seem like a chaya would also be okay to bring as a korban. However, prat mina bakar minatzon. But then the pasuk says no, it has to be from cattle or from sheep. V'nizma to hachaya mina korban, and therefore the chaya becomes excluded as something you can bring as a korban. Ve'in bechlal ela mashe beprat, and therefore, when we talk about the klal, what can you bring the klal of mina behema? It's only what's included in the pratim themselves, so it has to be from bakar vitzon. So that's how we know, for instance, you can't bring venison, right, deer or something. It's only bakar and tzon from this pasuk. Okay. Another example, Kamoshene'amar lo tobash shatnez. So when the pasuk says here in Dvarim, it says lo tobash shatnez, and then it says tzemer upishtin yachdav. So if it just said shatnez, that's a klal. She'asar kol shatnez shehu mishnei minim. The idea of shatnez is that it's anytime you bring two types of material together. So anything like that would be asr if I just looked at the klal. Yarchakach prat tzemer upishtin yachdav. Tzemer upishtin asr of a lo davar acher. So there's again that prat that's narrowing down what the klal really means. It's only when you put together both wool and linen in one garment. So there you go. That's the rule how klal and prat works. The klal would only be inclusive of those that are in the prat that are provided.
Does it have to be in the same pasuk?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it seems like that is that. For klal prat, it seems like that's what we're looking at is within the same pasuk. Yeah, I think we're going to get to others down below where we start to looking, it's sort of like the binyan over the gezerah shava, where you're starting to take multiple psukim together. But for this one, we're only looking at within a single pasuk. All right, so Hamida Chamishis is a miprat to klal. So now we're going to go the opposite direction, right? So the pasuk says, "V'chein ta'aseh lechamaro, v'chein ta'aseh lesimlaso, v'chein ta'aseh lecho avedas achicha." So we only hear that it's an aveda later in the pasuk, but from the beginning it says, "And so you should do for his donkey, or for his piece of clothing." So let's jump back up. V'chein ta'aseh lesimlaso prat. Shemashma she'ilu ata chayiv lahashiv bilvad avalo davar acher. So it seems like if I just look at the first couple, like the first few words, that I only have to return something if it's his donkey or if it's his article of clothing. Those are the only things that are specified. Avalo davar acher. But then it comes later and tells me, no, anything that your brother has lost, you have to return, right? And you find you can't hide from it. You have to return it to them. So, and therefore, what we see is that the klal that comes after the prat is adding to the prat. So halach achar haklal. Therefore, we go after that general statement and not the pratim themselves. So again, it's basically the opposite of what we just saw up above, and the last one of the klal prat. And then a second example, so in this pasuk in the Aseret Adibros, it says you shouldn't covet the house of your friend. And then it specifically says the wife of your friend, his servant, male or female, his ox, his donkey, anything else that he owns. So, okay, so lo zachmur eishes re'echa v'avdova amaso v'shoro v'chamoro. So those are the pratim. Shemashma elu in the chalachmod. Those you cannot covet. If I just looked at the first part of the pasuk, it seems like it's just giving me the specific examples where lo zachmod would pertain. Aval davar acher kain, but anything else I would be able to covet. V'achar kach v'cho asher l're'echa chazar v'klal v'naseh haklal musaf al prat. And later on when it says v'cho asher l're'echa, that's telling me that it's really anything, and it adds to those detailed items. So again, exact opposite of what we saw above. Once you've got the pratim in the cloud comes to become the important piece, and the pratim are just examples. All right. And I may have miscalculated this one. This is the last one I put in. I thought we'd get through the 3 more this week. So it may be a shorter session. It's always hard to know how long it's going to take to get through them. Okay, so let's take a look. The Midrash Shishis. This is actually a little bit longer one though, I think. So klal upratu klal. So now we're going to combine. These psukim are a little bit more complicated because now we go from a general to more details, but then back to a general statement. So iyata dan elakain haprat. So when you have the klal pratu klal, then what you have to look for is that it's only something that's kain haprat. So it becomes something similar to the pratim that are mentioned. So let's take a look at an example. Okay, so this is definitely a bit more complicated. So the pasuk in Mishpatim says al kol dvar pesha. So any type of area where there was a pesha involved, some kind of a sin. And we're talking about here is this is monetary laws. So al shor, al chamor, al seh, al salma, al kol aveda asher yomar ki hu zeh. Ad ha'Elohim yavo dvar shnehem asher yarshiun Elohim yishalem shnayim l'reyehu. So and this is actually a really difficult pasuk to sort of darshan out. The Gemara in Bava Metzia spends a lot of time looking at this, but this is actually the source for, if you remember the Gemara of Moed b'Miktzah. So it's one of it's a very famous Gemara in Bava Metzia, where somebody, if you come to me and you say, you owe me $100, and I say, no, I only owe you 50, right? So I'm being moded to you that, yes, I do owe you something, but I'm not being moded that I owe you the entire amount that you're claiming. That's asher yomar ki hu zeh. So, how do we translate when the person says ki hu zeh? The Gemara understands that means a moed b'mitzvah. But what does that mean when that happens? Then ad ha'Elohim, meaning in this case, it's not to God, but it means that you're going to Beis Din. So you're going in front of judges.
Or you have to take a shua.
And you have to take a shua. Exactly. And that's what you're doing. Exactly. That's what you're doing in the Beis Din. And that's what this is talking about, is all called Devar Pesha, that would include, I think, other cases as well, where you'd have to take a shvua when there's not Edim present. So a lot of this, there's a lot going on here.
So where's the klal is obvious, I'll call Devar Pesha, and then all these examples of prat. Where's the second klal?
So let's take a look. Let's jump back up to the Abu Raham. So, okay, Shenemar, I'll call Devar Pesha, Sheba Olam. Any of these examples is the klal, right? V'achakach prat, al shor, al chamor, al seh, al sama, kamashmao. Shal elu ata chayev li shava bilvad. You only have to take a shvua. Avolo davar acher, but if I stopped there, it would only be on these items that are listed, nothing else. V'yachar kach klal al kol aveda. So here, when it says al kol aveda, that's my next klal.
Okay.
So that anything that was lost to this person, to the owner, that no longer has this item. So now we have a klal upratu klal. So iyata dan ela ka'ein haprat. So the only examples that will be part of this would be something that's ka'ein, the pratim that were mentioned. So ma haprat mefurash davar hametautel v'gufo mamon. So I guess what he's saying is, and how he's understanding this is that these examples are telling us, the sort of the common denominator, right, between these items of the shor, the chamor, and the sama, is that they are metaltalin. They are objects that you can pick up and move, or maybe you're not picking up a chamor, but you're schlepping it anyway, and you can move it, or or at least guide it, that sort of thing. The gufo mamon, and it itself is money, meaning that it has intrinsic value to it, like a chamor has intrinsic value that you can sell. So af kol davar hametautel gufa mamon. So anything else that's going to fit that rubric, meaning that's metaltalin and it is intrinsically valuable. So what's it coming to exclude then? What is my klal pratu klal coming to exclude? So this would not apply to karkos. Yatsu karkos she'ena metaltalin. So anything that's a piece of real estate is not metaltalin, and therefore this rule about taking him to Beis Din is not going to apply. Yatsu avadim, and also servants are also not going to. Why shehukshu lekarkos? Because they are connected to karka. Let's see if I have that pasuk. Trying to that one. I don't think I. I don't think I have that full pasuk, but the pasuk says, I think it's also in Devarim, Visnachotem osam livnechem acharechem lereshes achuza. So the pasuk is talking about avadim, and that you can leave them over as part of your estate. Lereshes achuza is part of an estate, and in estate, at least in terms of lereshes achuza, is in reference to like real estate. So apparently servants get connected to real estate, to an estate, and therefore they're not considered to be metaltalin, and therefore they would not fall under this rubric. So,
or if you died while the servant was still indentured to you, the servant stays to your heirs.
Right, exactly.
Just like the land.
Right. So yatsu shtaros, and this is also going to exclude any kind of contract shtaros. Shafapisha metaltalin, that even though shtar itself is metaltalin, you can move it around, but in gufan mamon, but it's not directly valuable, right? It represents something of value, but it itself doesn't have value, and therefore arguments over shtaros have separate dinim as well. Okay, so that was the first example of a klal pratu klal. All right. So the next one is K'moshen Amar b'maiser. So now we're going to talk about. I think this is Maiser Sheni. We'll take a look at the psukim. V'nasata hakesef b'cho asher ta'aved nafshecha klal. Okay, so let's take a look before we get. Do I have it? Here it is. V'nasata hakesef b'cho asher ta'aved nafshecha b'bakor b'tzon u'b'yayin u'b'shechar u'b'cho asher tishacha nafshecha. So this is Maiser Sheni that you would be bringing up to Yerushalayim, right? And enjoying, right, using it to buy something and enjoy yourself in Yerushalayim. So the pasuk says anything that you enjoy, whether it's meat, whether it's wine, shechar, some kind of other liquor, right? Whatever else your heart desires. And then you eat it there. Right? That's okay. So that's Maiser Sheni. So we'll come back up. So B'Maiser says that's a klal, right? Anything that your heart desires is the klal. Then you have your pratim of what's included. So we have a klal pratu klal. So the only things that you can use your Maiser Sheni money for are going to be something that's ka'ein, the pratim that are mentioned in that pasuk itself. So maha prat mefurash mi pri ugdule karka. So the fact that it's specifically calling out fruits and that which grows from the ground. Take another look. So bakar batzon bayayin v'shechar. Okay. Af kopri mipri ugdule karka. So anything else that would fit into that same rubric, whether it's fruits or something else that grows from the ground.
What about the bokar?
Right. That's I think what we're about to jump into. Good question. So you're miskavid to the Budar Ham's question. Right? They're not wheat, they're not barley or whatever. So Yishlomar Mama Shekasav Totse Haaretz Nefesh Chay Lemina. So the pasuk right in the beginning in Bereshis, when it says that the earth will give out nefesh chay lemina behema v'remes. So you could say that okay, they are that maybe they are somehow gedulei karka because of that pasuk. Yeshlomar shem gedulas ayidei gedulei karka shehem ha'asavim. So they are indirectly gedulei karka because they feed, right? They graze, and they graze directly off of the ground. So indirectly they are gedulei karka. So either way, whether you want to look at it from the Bereshis aspect or from the fact that they're just indirectly growing from the ground because of the grazing that they do. Okay, so that's it. You know what? We've got a couple more minutes. Let's just go back to that first example of Al Kod Davar Pesha. I also have the Gemara in Bava Kama. We can just take a look at that since we have a few minutes. So just jumping back to that example, the Gemara in Bava Kama says, okay, so we'll just look at it, start from the middle of this Gemara. It says, Menhani mili de tenor about it. I'll call Davar Pesha klal, al shor, al chamor, al se, al sama, prat. So this is, this is exactly what the Abu Darham was quoting from. I'll call Aveda chazar uklal. So we have klal uprat uklal, iatadan ella keina prat. Mahaprat mefurish davar hametatav gufo mamon afko davar metatav gufo mamon. So, and you can see this is exactly where he was quoting from. So therefore, the way that works is this has to be metatalin, and it has to be that it's directly valuable, that the metatalin itself has intrinsic value. Yatsu karkos she'ena metatalin, yatsu avodim shehukshu lekarkos, yatsu shtaros shafal pish metatalin and gufan mamon, yatsu hektish. This is another example that Buddha didn't quote from. Hektish reyehu ksiv ima haprat mefurish davar she'nivlas metabe. Okay, we'll this is getting into something else, but you can see where Rashi says in gufan mamon by the sharos, right? It says by yatzu sharos alpha pisha metartlit in gufan mamon, and Rashi says, what does it mean that a star isn't gufan mamon? Ella gormim legvos mamon. It's a star, like a star chov, right? That says that I lent or I borrowed money from you. That shtar itself doesn't have intrinsic value. Rather, you use that in order to collect your debts. That's probably a better explanation than what I said. But that's why the shtar itself wouldn't be considered it, because it doesn't have the value. It's only used to collect the value. Okay, but it's good just to see the Gemara and just to see it inside. That's it's walking. The Buddha just quoted from it, but the Gemara itself walks you through what the klal prat klal is. And similarly, with the second example of Meiser Sheni, the Gemara in Nazir is doing the same thing. That's the klal. Bakar vatzon vayayin vashecher. That's the prat. V'cho asher tisha achad nafshecha chazar v'klal. So now we have a klal prat to klal. Iyatadan ela ke'ena prat. Maha prat mefurish pri mi pri. Vigduli karka. Afko pri mi pri vigduli karka. So anything else that that you can buy, anything with your Meiser Sheni money, anything that's also pri or geduli karka. Michdi. So let's take a look at this. Klal pratu klal ke'in prata dainin klala basra maya. Oh, sorry. This is starting to get into a different area, but Yeah, so you can see again, the Abraham was just quoting from the Gemara Nazir. Again, I guess it also just shows his Bekias that he knew where the Gemaras were, and he was just quoting them for us. But again, I think that also shows the amazing Abu Darham, the Sefer. He just puts this all together for you, and the sources are all there inside. So yeah, Rick, just to your question before, I find the Abu Darham is so insightful and just how helpful in terms of understanding what the tefillas are. In this case, what is this Brisa really telling us? He really just puts it all together for us.
Now, in the first two examples, could you go back to that first page?
Yeah.
Is the word call used in every time there's a klal? It looks like it is. So
yeah,
here
when we're talking about klal, pratu klal.
Sure, I'll call Devar Pesha, and then later on it says
right.
Call Aveda. So in the first the klal and prat at the beginning today.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying the word kol is in there to sort of give you that idea that, hey, this is not just one thing, but it's everything.
I'm just asking you, is that true on the first two examples on the first page 1 today?
Yeah, let's take a look. So like when you're saying when it was just a prat to klal, was it also, is that what you mean?
Yeah, so what was the pasuk?
So the pasuk here was you're right, l'chol avedas achicha. Yeah, that's a good deal.
What about page?
Yeah, and look here, v'chol asher l'reyecha. Same here.
What about page 1?
All right, so this is a klal prat. So so here it just says mina behema. So here we don't have kol behema, it just says mina behema. Right. So perhaps not, maybe that's not obligatory that you have the word kol, but maybe that's an indication that you have a klal when it says kol.
Right, and it doesn't say it next to shadnes either.
Right.
No klal. Okay.
Right. So I guess it's not required, but